Hello everyone and welcome to Tech with Robert, the Get Started with T-SQL course. In this lecture we're going to talk about null values, why they are important to understand, how to handle them, and the different type of bugs that can occur if we don't have the null values properly. But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, give a thumbs up on the video if you like what I do. That really helps me to know what I do well and what you guys want me to improve on or focus more on in the future lectures. So without further ado, let's dive right in. I have prepared a small script here which I'm going to link. I'm going to paste this code and the link in the description of this video. So just go there and copy this code here. First start off by, let's see, I will drop the table there. So first off, start off by creating the query, the table like this, and then do the insert statement all the way down here. Then you see we get 8 rows affected, and then after the lecture is done, you could run this drop table query here. And so if we start off by just querying the data and looking at it, we're querying the table and looking at the data. So we see here we have, let me just say select star from customers like this, and then we want the customer ID. We want the CustomerFirstName, CustomerLastName, and the CustomerPhone. So if we look at this, if we run this query, we see that for some rows here we have unknown, we have a phone number, then we have an empty string here, we have nothing, and then we have phone number again, then we have null, not specified, and another phone number. So pay attention to this null value here, because this concept can be quite confusing even for more skilled SQL developers. It could be quite confusing to understand sometimes how to work with nulls and how to handle them, you know, what's so special about them. And so you see here, for example, we have typed something, it's unknown, and here we have a phone number, here we have not specified, which is a text. And here we have nothing, like just an empty string, which is also treated as a separate value. That is a value. Even if it's an empty string, it's still a value. And so null is, it's not a number, you know, it's not a date, it's not a number, it's not even a blank text, it's just simply nothing. It's unspecified, it's nothing. And it's a special kind of value that we need to understand how to handle, because if I were to tell you that, okay, we've taken a look at, okay, we want to select all the customers whose last name is either Wang or Yang, for example. If I were to ask you to, can you write a query, you know, you need to use a where filter here. So give me all of the customers here who have null in their customer phone. And so naturally and logically, many people would just say, okay, but it's simple. We just say where customer phone is equal to null. Okay, let me just actually copy that here and print it like this. And so we say, okay, so where customer phone is equal to null. But if we run this query, notice that we didn't get anything. And so if we run both of these queries at the same time, we expected to, since we specified here that we want the customer phone to be equal to null, we expected to get this row here, but we didn't get anything. But if we were to say that we want the customer phone to be just, you know, an empty string, then we would get these two values. So the point I'm trying to make here is that null and an empty string, it's not the same, even though one might argue and say that, yeah, but I mean null is nothing, it's not specified, it's nothing, so it's empty. Yes, it is empty, it is not specified, but SQL Server still treats null and empty strings differently. And so if we really want to write this query, if we really want to select all of the rows where the phone number is null, we have to use a special function which is directly tied to working with nulls. And so what that is, the isNull and isNotNull functions. So how we would use that function is we write where customer phone and we type is null, like this. So if we run this query, we see that now we will get that row here, the customer ID number 6, Richard Johnson, who had null in the customer phone here. And at the same time, if we wanted to select all of the customers where the phone number is not null, we could use the same thing here, but instead of typing is null, we would say is not null. So then we would get all of the rows except for the one with the null value in the customer phone column. There are some special functions that we can also use further in combination with null, and that is the isNull and NullIf functions. So let me write a query here, and we say, actually let me just, and so we say, there is a function here, we say we want the customer phone, and then we want to write isNull. We say customer phone, and then we type in a string value here what we want to type, what we want to have instead of null. So if we run this query, we see that we have told SQL Server that look at the customer phone column, and if the value is null, replace that with NA for not applicable right over here. But as you can see, just to sort of prove that null and empty strings are not the same type of values, it didn't apply this function on these two rows here. Because, as I mentioned earlier, null is not the same thing as empty strings. They are treated as two completely different values. And so another thing is that if you look at empty spaces and empty strings, just like just a space, these are treated as the same value, because if you see here we have just an empty string and here we have an empty string but a space, and we still get both of those rows when we just say that we want everything where the customer phone is just blank or just empty. So we still get both of those rows. So just a simple space and an empty string are treated as the same value, but null is not treated as the same value. It's a separate value. It stands for unspecified. We don't know. It's not a text, it's not a number, it's not a date, it's simply nothing. It's not specified. Another function we can use for handling nulls here is the NullIf function. So we could say NullIf, and what this would do is it would convert a value. So we say we have the customer phone again here, and so this is sort of reverse from this one, because this one is saying that if the value here is null, then we want to place a text here, a value. But here is here we're doing the reverse thing. So here we want to say we want to set null when the value is something that we specify here. So if we would say we specify just an empty string here, or just name it NullIf, we would say for each row where we just have an empty string, just replace that with null. So if we now see, here we see that now also these two values here, which are empty, now these are also null. And we can also further, lastly, we can use a nested function to sort of handle and take care of all of these empty and null values, because that is a pretty common thing that you would want to do. For example, if you're exporting data to Excel or CSV or using it in another system, you generally don't want to export data or work with data that is empty or have the value null. So you want to handle them by specifying that they are like here, NA, not applicable or unknown or not specified or whatever. So you want to handle these type of values. So what we could do is outside here we could say coalesce, and then inside here the NullIf, and then this is a new function here. We could say NA. So now we have handled all of, both of these values. So when we run this query, we see that if it's either null or an empty string here, we will treat it as NA. So it's really important to understand that what I sort of want you guys to take away from this and really understand is you cannot use the where clauses here, like and, or, and the is equal to. You cannot use that on null, because null is not a value. It's not equal to a value. It's just simply unspecified. So this query here, when you say customer phone is equal to null, it will not work. You have to use the isNull method here and write it this way. That is it for this lecture, guys. And the next lecture, we're going to introduce the group by clause, a very important topic in T-SQL that I really recommend you to understand and learn really well before advancing in your T-SQL career. So I will see you guys in the next lecture.